Why, hello there, friends. Thanks for clicking on this video. And I guess this go around, I'm joining in on the conversation. Give me a few moments to explain, and I'll get to what I know about the subject. Underneath one of my previous videos, someone had asked me if I had ever made gunpowder out of Osage orange. And it was no. But I do know the specific gravity of Osage orange is 0.82, and I'll discuss more about that in just a few moments. And I thought that was the end of it. Well, then my friend William, who also lives here in New Mexico, howdy, William, and congratulations on that antelope. I was impressed by the horns. Mighty fine. But in the course of our conversation, he had asked me if I had ever made gunpowder out of Osage orange and or what I knew about it. And I says, interesting that you're asking that, because in as many days another person had asked me. I says, where is this coming from? Apparently Jake at Everything Black Powder had done a video shooting Osage orange gunpowder. Now, full context, I don't watch what Jake does. I unsubscribed to him about a year ago or so. He left some negative comments underneath one of my videos, accused me of being biased and stuff like that. So I unsubscribed, and that was it. But I still know what he's doing to a certain extent, just simply because some of you relayed to me underneath my comments what he does. And even though I've unsubscribed, his thumbnails still come up on my YouTube search because of the topic, black powder, homemade black powder. So I see through the thumbnails kind of what he's been up to. So when I asked my friend William, about the whole thing, he made some gunpowder out of Osage orange, and that was the thumbnail where he broke records or most powerful or whatever it was. So I decided to sit down and watch at least the opening of that video that Jake did. Now, I'll get to what he describes. Well, I'll just tell you right now, and I understand the reason for it. He describes that when he puts the pieces of Osage orange in the can, puts the heat to it, he's got a controlled heat system. I just put mine on a propane turkey fryer thing, and I just let it go. I just kind of watch it at that point. So I don't have any heat control other than it's just a low, slow heat. So anyhow, Jake is describing that as the wood's getting hot, it's not getting really smoky, but then all of a sudden it gets real smoky and the room's filled with smoke, and then once that initial smoke is burnt off, then it's just very little smoke until however much time he chars his charcoal. Okay, this is what I know about Osage orange. Being a bow builder, here's one of my Osage orange bows, backed with hickory, overlays. So if you think that I wouldn't know much about Osage orange, once again, you would be mistaken, because I built several bows out of Osage orange. I myself like to put a backing on them because you have to really follow the grain structure of Osage orange. And I have one that I've been in the process of working on, but the grain structure is not to my optimal liking. So I'm going to sacrifice. But just so that you'll understand the nature of Osage orange, okay? It is the hardest of hardwoods on this continent. And it was imported. It's not indigenous to this country. And they imported it because mostly grows straight, mostly. If you're going to look at Osage orange from the perspective of fencing posts, marking off property boundaries, Osage orange is what everybody preferred to use. Okay. But because Osage orange is so resinous and has such a resin to it, well, I won't bore you with 20 pages from the Bois Bible regarding Osage orange. I'll just read the one thing, and then I'll tell you what I also know about it from reading articles in Primitive Archery magazine that I've been collecting for 2 decades plus. Right here on page 20, the author is writing, I once made a bow from a stave, that would be Osage orange, which was cut in 1939. Okay, this book was published in 1992, if I recall. 1992. So that piece of Osage orange has been sitting around for quite a while. And then because he was able to make a bow out of it, he named it Sleeping Beauty. Okay, then he goes down here and says, I once paid only the freight on 800 pounds of perfect Osage, sent to me as a gift by a friend, a talented maker of fine furniture. You can guess what happened. Not one self bow in the pile. It was all walking sticks. And I've experienced the same thing. I've done some trading at Rendezvous from somebody that was going to go back east real soon and bring me some pig nut hickory. And I described as a Bois what I would want and everything else. Well, I turned most of that into tomahawk handles. I couldn't make a bow out of it. Because when you try to describe somebody what you're looking for in a bow work, it doesn't work. But the reason why this bow remained in the stave form without bugs getting to it, without any natural deterioration, is the resin that's in the wood. Now I will tell you, from reading articles in primitive archer magazines, some fellows describe digging up some fence posts that have been in the ground for 100 years and still making quality bows out of it because of the resins. There's only one creature that can destroy Osage orange because the rest of it, including your termites, stay away from it, and it is the wood wasp. And from what I've learned about it, the time when wood wasps get to Osage orange is when it's been cut. Okay, and then they usually burrow into the sapwood, and then as the worm is eating the sapwood, from time to time it gets into the heartwood, and that's what I discovered on this stave. So that's why I'm not too worried about cutting this up for this experiment, because that's what this is. But just so that you'll understand the very nature, here's a small piece of Osage orange. Now, when you go to cut it, because of the resins in the wood, it burns extremely fast. Those are the resins burning in the wood. So when Jake describes getting that huge cloud of smoke all at once and then seem to be disappearing, that would be the resins burning off in the Osage orange. Okay, so I've got some more pieces here. These are pieces that I've had for quite a while, just hanging around, because I do so much woodworking and overlaying and some of this stuff. To me, a piece of wood like this for an inlay or an overlay is pretty valuable. And just so that you can see, when it's freshly cut and sanded, it has that orangey yellowish look to it. In time, and over time, it turns dark. So you can usually tell how old a piece of Osage orange is just by looking at the color. Now, my real aim and my real purpose in this video is not to produce a gunpowder that's more powerful than anything else. What I want to see specifically is, once I char this and get all that resin burnt off, I want to see how the specific gravity would relate in those clear jars that I've been using to double check specific gravity and how it relates to the charcoal. Because I will tell you, and you should probably have already guessed, specific gravity of any type of wood is measured with water. And you use a certain size, diameter wood, and then get it down to, like its driest point. And in the industry, it's mostly around 12%. Bowyers love this wood to be down around to about 7%. Okay, 7 to 9%. But the thought process behind it is when you have a wood chunk at a certain size and you put this in water to measure buoyancy, that tells you how heavy the wood is. Now, because this wood, and I'll use the term infused with a resinous, how much weight would that add to the wood so that when they're measuring specific gravity, they're actually looking at the weight of a certain size piece of wood that's infused with the resin. That's what I really want to find out. Like I said, I don't care how this stuff performs in a gun. I don't care about that. Or through a chronograph. I just want to see what the specific gravity is of this once the resins are burned off. And it's going to take me a few days. I know from the recording of this is going to be instantaneous. But what I also want to do is I also want to get a brand new container to char this in, just simply because I don't want the creosote from the other charcoals bleeding into this and maybe giving me a false reading or something like that. So it's going to take me a few days to get to town to get a container big enough to do this. And yes, I am going to cut this up and char it also, just on the notion that if this ends up being around 50-55%, and I'll do all my glass jars and we can see where it where it's gonna level off, or where it's gonna be in the glass jar. So that's why I've kept all of this stuff, so that we can see the value of our charcoals, and in particular Osage orange, once the resins are burnt off. So I guess stay tuned. So there's my can of Osage orange, Bois d'Arc. I'm going to miss the smell of sanding this. It smells pretty good. Just so that we are, kind of clear on it, right next to it I have a piece of pine that's, fat wood. Some people call it resin wood. It's used as starting fires, and if you're familiar with using this, you know how quick it goes up and how it burns. When we talk about resin being in a hardwood such as Osage orange, it's not to be confused with sap infused. It's kind of two different things. Having been a bow builder for many years, and in particular when I use exotic hardwoods, Bowyer's Bible always tells you to be careful with those. The articles I've read in Primitive Archer magazine say be very careful and make sure you put a mask when you're sanding those exotic hardwoods, because they're toxic. They use the word toxic, but in my opinion, having sanded, say like Ipe, Jatoba, wood, zebra wood, stuff like that, to me they're more of an irritant. But in fact, those are the resins that you're actually sanding off, with the wood itself. Like the fat wood, that piece of pine right there, when you put that on a sander, it'll clog up your sanding disc, or even a belt sander. Whereas Osage orange or some of your exotic hardwoods would not, even though there's a resin in it. So I hope this makes it as clear as mud. So I'm going to go ahead and get the lid on it, get it lit off, and every, half hour or so I'm going to take the can and turn it on its side so I can kind of get an even burn with it. And when it gets all done, as I do normally, I'll put it in my little PVC tube and go to crushing it up. and making some gunpowder out of it. It's only been a couple of minutes. She's starting to smoke. If you guys hear any noise in the background, I got my tumbler going. I got another batch of mixed charcoal gunpowder milling up right now. But I'm going to keep the camera close by. As you can see, I got 5 holes in there because if this thing does take off when the resins ignite, I want to make sure that there's plenty of space for the smoke to vent, and without blowing the lid off. But we'll have to wait and see how that works. And as you can tell, I don't have a rip-roaring fire going. You know, that is what it is. I might turn it down in a little bit, or I might even turn it up in a little while. But for right now, it's not a whole lot of flame there. So it's been about 5, 6, 7 minutes maybe. And as you can see, the smoke is really beginning to bellow out of the top of this can. And I'm actually hearing a little bit of popping going on the inside. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on its side so I can try to get an even burn. But yeah, I can hear it popping on the inside, which would tell me those resins are igniting. So I just turned it on its side, and it's been about 30 seconds to a minute, and you can see that the amount of smoke has really simmered down, if that's the right word. But if you sit and watch it, and as I am right now, I can hear it popping inside this can. Can you guys hear it? And as you can see, the smoke's starting to billow out a little bit more. Those would be the resins. Now my question is, before I get to pulverizing any of this up, at what point do we stop the carburizing, so that maybe perhaps, and I don't know, but maybe perhaps some of the resin might still be, you know, in the charcoal. You know, if you burn it too much, do you burn off all the resins? I know, listening to the fellow from Hoffman Reproductions, when he talks about Swiss, you know, stopping their charring process when the wood is just going from like that dark brown to black, apparently that's the optimal burning you want to get with your charcoals. So I'm going to watch this real closely here, and when the smoking seems to really stop, or just about, I'm going to shut her down, and I'm going to let her cool down, and then I'm going to go to breaking it up, or pulverizing, and getting whatever charcoal I can get. And if there's still wood left that needs to be recharred, or at least finish charring, I'll go ahead and finish it. So you can really see the smoke bellowing now. I'm going to try to get close to it so you can hear the popping coming from inside the can. So as you can see, the smoke is down to a minimal, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and shut her down, let the can cool down, and put the wood into my little pulverizing container, shake the living crap out of it, loosen up all of the charcoal that I can. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to have to put some of it back into the can, because the wood that's in the middle of the can, you know, it takes a lot longer for that to char out. And at this point, I don't want to risk maybe burning all of the resin out of the charcoal if the resin is what actually helps this become more powerful. So I guess I'll bid you adieu for now, and turn the camera back on when I think it's worthwhile saying something. So I just took the cover off the can, and I'm reflecting it in the sun, obviously. I hope you guys can see how resinous the top of this cover looks like. I'm going to go into my shop and give you a different view of it underneath those LED lights. So once again, here's the lid underneath the LED light. Hopefully you can see all that resin. Pan over to the can, and if you guys can kind of focus, you can see the resin, especially in this piece right here, that's still attached, or at least sitting on top of that piece of wood. So obviously there's still resin that needs to be burnt out of this wood. At least that's the way I'm looking at it right now. I am going to go ahead and break up what I can see. Like that piece right there, you can see is creosote and whatever stuck on top of that wood. Interesting. But I'm going to go try something real quick, and we'll see if my hypothesis is correct. See how she's burning off? So as I dump it out of the can, and yeah, it's still a little warm to the touch. Can hear a few things popping, but you can see that there's still a lot of resin on these pieces of wood, and the inside of the can doesn't look any better than what the lid did. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and put the torch to that and burn all that out, and just go ahead and keep cooking it as it stands right now, because I'm a little shy, or not shy, but a little well, it is breaking up, so maybe I should try it. I don't know. Maybe let it cook for another 15-20 minutes and then let it cool down, and then go ahead and start pulverizing it, because that piece broke up pretty easy. That did too. This one's real warm. That broke up really good. Maybe what I should do is just go through right now what I can break up by hand, go ahead and start pulverizing that. And in fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I can just imagine already somebody's typing, but that's what the inside of my can looks like. Well, here's the can after I had charred all that cherry wood. And I mentioned cherry wood has a resin to it. But does this lid look as glossy and shiny, like, you know, the resin's still liquefied? I have a little bit inside the can, but for the most part, the inside of the can is dry. But, you know, far be it from me to tell you how to observe this. Make your own mind up in this matter. So here's a little bit. The pieces that I did break up, and I'm getting the charcoal, looks really dry, looks good, you know, from personal experience. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not overly charred. I can still see a little bit of brown. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but I can see it from here. And this is typically what I try to go for. Don't char the entire can at once. You know, char a little bit of it, get some of it out, like I'm doing now. And this piece I can no longer break up, so I'm going to have to return that back to the can. But if you can look at the grain structure, you can see that hopefully you can see it's still kind of brown in color. Let me give you a little bit of the edge and see if you can see the edge. See if I can get another piece, because there's not much in here now. Here's another piece I can't break up. And hopefully you guys can see the grain structure, and it's still brown. So this can be returned to the can when it gets done and finished being charred. So I want to see what this charcoal does over an open flame. I have some in the spoon here. Should make good gunpowder. But until I get it in my guns and see how clean it burns, what the velocities are, pouring it off of a spoon like this is really no good way to test it. Well, that messy chore is done. I have enough, actually a little more than enough. It got about that much off the bottom of the container. And I still have some more to grind up if I choose to. Just simply because I want to test it first, you know, as a gunpowder. But before we get to that point in this progression, I thought I would once again show you how it's represented in these clear jars. So I'm going to get set up and continue on. Alrighty, for those of you that have been with this channel for a while and have observed me doing this before, can you take a really good educated guess at which one would be the Osage orange? Give you a moment to look at it and think. If your guess was that this is the Osage orange at 0.82 specific gravity, you would be correct. This is the cherry at 0.50, and then this is the maple at 0.63. Now I know right here these things look real close, but and here again, they're not perfectly level in the jar or settled level. But when you hold it more up into the direct light, this one is just a hair taller, which is the cherry at 0.50 and the maple at 0.63. Now, if you reflect back to some of the shooting that I've done with the maple is actually done pretty good with velocities, but it burns real dirty. So let me just move in 75 grains of potassium nitrate. Alrighty, here we've got 75 grams of potassium nitrate up against 15 grams of the maple at 0.63. Now when I ran the maple through my chronograph using the 2-inch pucking die, 5-shot average was 16:19. The first shot proved to be the fastest at 16:96. On that day, I shot the maple gunpowder with the willow that I had pucked with an 1 5/16 die. That 5-shot average was only 15:96, with the highest shot being 16:75. But as we know, 75 grams of potassium nitrate was more than enough to consume both the willow and the maple. Now I have the cherry sitting next to 75 grams of potassium nitrate, and when I shot that, 80 grains by weight, 1-inch pucking die. This cherry has got a specific gravity anywhere from 0.47 to 0.54. And my 5-shot average ended up being 1902. And if you didn't see that video, just let me explain for a moment. The first 2 shots I recorded The first shot was 2,083, and the second shot was 2,032. Now, I actually shot 6 shots so that I could throw out those 2 numbers. Well, actually, number 5 I had to redo. And so with those 2 numbers thrown out and redoing shot number 5, because it produced 1658, I threw that one out, redid it. So with that 5-shot average that I have with the numbers, I recorded 1,902 feet. Now, that shows that there's enough potassium nitrate to consume cherry. So, based on that, one would assume that this is more than enough potassium nitrate to consume this 15 grams of Osage orange. And when you compare that to the maple, you can see that the Osage orange is a much heavier charcoal. So anyhow, I'm going to leave this at that. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Be willing to share it with your bestest of buds. And I guess we'll see you. I've got one more video that I want to do. I've got 2 more gunpowders with the blended charcoal. I'm going to be running those first while this gunpowder with the Osage orange is being milled. So thanks for watching, and everybody have a great day. Bye.